Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Kompanion, and I'm Peter.
I'm Brihana.
And joining us, a companion favorite, Michael Jonathan Smith, writer. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think you were our very first writer that wasn't part of the big three after season 3, I believe.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I could have sworn you guys talked to Joe and Luan before me, but that's awesome. I'm happy to be on here.
Well, you were definitely the first after season 3, but
Oh,
you
after
could be
season
right.
3, got it.
But
Yes, you're right. After season 3, you're right. We did speak.
Right. And technically you were the first we spoke to anyway, because you were the first that we met in person.
That's
Right.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was in my office when you came by.
Yes.
God,
Hayden, shut the door.
Yes,
Yep.
Hayden shut the door because I had all the cards on my wall.
Yes.
Should have got a dang picture, when we were busy.
Oh well,
but,
I was, you didn't know. I was just another cog in the wheel at that time. now you know what? Now you know the connection on that. So all good.
let me ask you this. At the time of this recording, in a little over 2 months, is the event at Pelly Center. Is that something you might be attending?
I will not be attending that, no, unfortunately, which is a bummer. I will be enjoying it from the stands or whatever. But I'm pumped for everyone who's going, and I love the Paley event, so that's going to be a good interview.
So when you say the stands, you're not meaning.
Oh, I mean like from home. I'm not going to be there. No.
Okay, because as of right now, I have an admission ticket to go. I'm waiting on getting a plane ticket. So once I get that plane ticket, then I'll know it's for sure that I'm going.
Awesome.
So,
well, enjoy that. That'll be super fun.
Yeah, the wheels are spinning. So at least for me. So definitely looking forward to that.
Very cool.
So let's get some things out of the way to catch up with you, since it has been about a year since we've spoken with you. I don't remember the timeline, and if we spoke about it already, but Twisted Metal, is there anything you can share about that?
I unfortunately cannot share anything at the moment. Hopefully we'll be able to share something somewhat soon. But yeah, I can't share anything at the moment. But I love that. I love what we were doing on it. So yeah, well, hopefully I can share something soon.
That's awesome. So since you can't, I know nothing obviously, but for those that are kind of interested, it is based off of a video game involving cars and weaponry and all that.
Yeah, a lot of demolition derby style fights and stuff like that. And I'm producing. I would be writing and producing, show running it with Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who did Deadpool and Zombieland, among others. They are executive producing. They kind of created the world and let me run with it. Will Arnett would be in it. He'd be involved. He's producing it, and then Anthony Mackie would star, which is crazy, and he's amazing. So yeah, it's just a total dream. It's like I've been working on it for a bit. I was developing it in between season 4 and 5, actually between season 3 and 4, and then subsequently 4 and 5, because the turnaround, we spoke before we started recording, but the turnaround between season 4 and 5 was like months. So I've been kind of working on the sly and or on the side, I mean, and it's like it's so much fun working on that show, just because it's like pretty much exactly the way I love to write, which is like all the comedy, all the drama, all the the emotion, all the action. It's like it just lets me write as much of myself as possible. So it's just like it's a blast. And hopefully I'll be able to share more about it in the near future.
I mean, that's definitely more than enough right there to kind of whet your appetite. I don't think I even knew Will Arnett and Anthony Mackie were attached, so that's awesome.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie's attached and Will Arnett's producing. Yeah.
What do we know what network?
I can't share anything about that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously live action. If we have,
it would be live action, which is wild. Yeah. It's pretty insane.
That's cool.
That's cool. But yeah. There's nothing. Honestly, there's nothing really to share about it beyond that. I'm attached to it, and I did write I wrote a pilot, but that was before we went out and tried to sell it. That was just more for Sony. But yeah.
So excited for you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's really awesome.
It's really cool.
So the last time we talked to you, you were just as starting to settle into this brave new world of virtual writers' rooms being the norm rather than the exception. Has that developed more? Obviously, we're still not going much of anywhere a year later. So are you more used to that? Is that becoming kind of your standard operating procedure now? Are you more used to it?
I think I'll be honest, writing season 4 was completely digital and I really did not enjoy it. I loved the show and I love writing on the show, but the Zoom of it all, I really struggled with personally because I have, to be honest, I have a lot of anxiety and a lot of in your room with other people, you pitch a joke, you get an immediate response, or you pitch an idea. It's easier to read the room. On Zoom. You're looking at a bunch of screens and everyone's muted. So you have no idea how things are landing, stuff like that. Since then, I've definitely gotten more used to it and, figured out, more systems and stuff like that. And, season 5, season 5 was actually in person, which was great. It was, I think, Joe alluded to this Joe and Luan alluded to this when they were on. We started in person in LA, but then because of the timeline, we actually moved the entire writer's room to Atlanta for season 5. So we were out there all together, and it made a world of difference being in person. And a writer's room that I'm working in right now, where we started in person and then had to shift to digital, and we're figuring out new systems of raising hands in Zoom and all of that, and that definitely helped. So I think I've gotten my sea legs a little bit more about it, just because you're right, so much of our lives have been centered around Zoom lately. I still vastly prefer being in person, obviously. So I definitely feel better about the Zoom of it all, and trying to help other writers who have not been in the Zoom rooms as much, at least give some tips and help with that. So, it's been tough, but I think, the fact that we were able to be in person for season 5 was huge, because that was around, when Delta started rising. So timeline wise, it was right when Delta started appearing was when we started in person, and we were just being very careful about it. And we didn't have any, we didn't have any cases, at least within the room. So, we were safe, wore masks, we're vaxxed. So it all worked out.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the framing of your camera right now. I feel we have to kind of talk about some of the things behind you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So what do we got there?
So I've got this, I think, is it Matt Tobin poster that, Joe knows the artist. I think it's Matt Tobin. I apologize if it isn't.
It sounds
but
familiar.
He did the Mondo poster. So that's the Mondo poster that we did for Cobra Kai. And Joe was kind enough to make sure that we could get a bunch for the writer's room that we all paid for. But I love that poster. So I had it framed around here, which is awesome because this guy, I'll have to look up his name. Oh, it's the Framing Devil in LA. He actually added all these snake details and stuff like that. So we got that. And then in the back, we've got, let's see, we've got a Scott Campbell Cobra Kai, Karate Kid. Here, I'll bring it closer. Let's see. Got that. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I fell in love with those. I wanted those so bad, and they sold out so fast.
I know. My wife actually snatched it for me as a gift. And then this is, so this is, obviously it's a Funko, but this was actually the Writers Room season 1 gift from the Big 3. They got us all Johnny Funkos. And then this trophy was the wrap gift from Ralph for season 4. And he signed it, which is very, very nice. And have our names on it and all that, which is awesome. And then the Golden Cobra in the back was actually a gift from my friends who actually moved to Portland, but they're huge Cobra Kai fans. And, they're just so nice. And they were at a rummage sale and totally just saw that Cobra and mailed it to me. Just, I think around when, I think it was around when we got the pickup for season 5. They mailed it to me. And so that was a very nice surprise. I'm trying to think if I have any other fun. I got a Sweet Tooth Twisted Metal car Funko back there too for fun. And some other Star Wars stuff and some Destiny stuff. So yeah. Oh, also I wanted to one up Joe and Luan. So I know they shared their jerseys. So I got a jersey also because I'm not as heavily thing, but you don't see me as much, but I was one of the Tahunga Terrors
Nice.
So Costumes was nice enough to send me that. And then also Bob Dearden, as a wrap gift for season 4, sent us all Eagle Fang jerseys.
Nice. Okay, so we've seen the video.
I'm sure
of,
you've seen these, but
John,
I want to show
yeah.
mine off. Yeah, we wore those all the time. Those are my pajamas.
Yeah, you guys give each other some really great wrap gifts, especially, and I don't want to say especially Ralph, but like I've seen some of the other things Ralph has given. Like I've seen like the kids had like chopsticks after one season. Really cool chopsticks from Ralph. So
yeah, we got chopstick. I got some chopsticks too. I got what are some other cool wrap gifts? The big 3 go nuts. I mean, one year we got mugs, which were these beautiful big beer mugs that had all 3 dojos. That was a season 4 gift. They gave us we got bicycles one year, which was crazy. It was wild. Their assistant at the time, I don't know, I hope it's okay, I share this. Their assistant at the time, Bobby D, texted me because I was not in Atlanta. I left the last 2 weeks of season 3, I think. And I get this text from him being like, choose, kind of like from Karate Kid. And there were just 3 images of bicycles, like beautiful, beach cruisers. And they mailed it to me, which was super nice. Like, it came in this big box, but I had no way to, I don't know how to build anything. I'm terrible with building stuff. So I ended up having to bring it to a bike store to build it for me. And I don't bike. It's probably hard to tell because I'm sitting here, but I don't exactly bike. So I get the bicycle and I can't get it in my car. I don't have a bike rack. So I literally have no way to get the bike back to my house. So I end up having to go back inside, have them take the wheel off of it, shove it back in my car, and then go home and kind of finagle away with duct, to get the wheel back onto it temporarily. So the bike is not even rideable at the moment because I don't have the right tools to safely put the wheel back on. So it is currently in my garage, but it's beautiful. And it came with a Cobra Kai bike seat cover, which is super nice. So anyway, the guys shower us with gifts. Our wrap gift in season 4 was really cool. The guy who did that poster actually designed a Cobra Kai t-shirt to look like the Coors Banquet design.
Yeah.
So those are very, very cool. But yeah, we've gotten some sweet wrap gifts over the years.
I think I've seen Joe wear that Coors one.
Yes.
Maybe even in our interview with him, maybe the first one or something.
I wouldn't put it past him. That shirt rules. I love that shirt.
Sounds vaguely familiar. But if you ever come up to Portland to visit your friends, love to take you out for coffee or something.
That would be great. We're definitely planning a Portland trip at some point because I miss those guys. And I've always wanted to go up there. I've never been up there. So it'd be an awesome excuse to get up there. So I would love to do that. That'd be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Brihana, do you want to ask me anything else before we get into 403 a little bit?
I just was going to say, I do remember somebody because I remember us both reacting to the Cobra Banquet basically shirt, but I can't remember if it was one of Joe and Luan or if it may have been Zach and Leo.
I feel it's Joe because I know recently I've seen a picture of Joe wearing it, and it might have been one of his behind the scene pictures with him in
it. Yeah, we all have Cobra Kai sweatshirts and t-shirts. So I'd say 75% of my clothing are Cobra Kai related gear. Whether it's from gifts or just what I've bought myself.
I don't know if you saw this
as it should be. No, as it should be.
Well, speaking of gifts, this was a gift from Sensei Pialani, one of our moderators.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
So this is a hockey sweater is what it's called because I guess they can't use the word jersey or whatever.
Sure. So, I love that. Oh, that's amazing, man.
So that's pretty cool. I wore it for our interview with John and Hayden, and when John got on, he was like, "What is that?" He was very interested.
John has some of the best Cobra Kai gear. I mean, he's just he's got. I actually ended up getting it too. That there's a Contenders skeleton sweatshirt. I love that sweatshirt. I'm I got one for myself. They're so good.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I'm sure they kind of took the inspiration from Tori in season 3.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that outfit, Tori's outfit in that season is like one of my all-time favorites. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Frank is like an amazing costume designer. He like outdone him. He's outdone himself. I love all the costumes.
Oh yeah, interview coming soon with Frank. We've already spoken with him. We just
He's
wanted
the best.
We just wanted to put out 401 first before we continued putting out more interviews.
Yeah, so. I'm not going to get specific, but there's one outfit in season 5 that he designed for Courtney, for Amanda, that might be one of my favorite, like in the context of the scene and the choice that he made. It's like my all-time favorite costume decision. Like I'm not going to get specific because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's so cool. It's just a great, like, you'll know it when you see it, is like my feeling about it.
So does this beat Dimitri's Pac-Man suit?
For me, it might. Dimitri's Pac-Man suit is amazing. I mean, that suit is so, like, when we saw it, we were just like, holy cow, what a find. It's different because I'm also biased because it's in one of my episodes. So when I saw it, I was like gushing about it. I just thought it was such a cool choice. But anyway, Frank's amazing. He's a genius.
Awesome. So we got a season 5 tease, something that Amanda wears.
Amanda wears something cool in an episode.
Okay.
I'm excited to watch the videos trying to decipher what the heck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my money on clothing.
Yes, it is clothing.
Okay.
Possibly a dress.
Possibly a dress. I can't spoil it one way or the other. It might be a dress.
Yeah. Okay, so Then Learn Fly. Fantastic episode. This has a lot of different things, and like I know it gets difficult to kind of remember who says what. John mentioned like he listens to some of our interviews with the writers, and we often ask like, well, who came up with this joke, or who came up with this line? And he said everything's coming so fast and furious, it's hard to keep track. And but with yours, you have a lot of different things too, and I don't know if it's things that you wrote into the script, or someone from the art department just thought that it'd be cool to add certain things. Like specifically what I'm getting at is Johnny's van, or Daniel's van that is stolen, and we get the eagle fang art on that. Can you talk about that?
We knew that we wanted that to happen. We just like I don't know who pitched it. Like it might have been a joke that we had been thinking about doing for a bit, but like we loved the idea that he had like he decked it out. We call it the Eagle Mobile, the Eagle van. So I think there were earlier versions of the Cold Open that was like it was a parody of the Back in Black Cold Open. You remember where they made the Cobra Mobile, but it was like the same thing being done to the Eagle van, which was just so funny to us. But in the end, it became a much better Cold Open. So we always knew we were gonna show that off. And I think the way it just ended up, where the final reveal of it was, I don't remember whether that was my idea or whatever, but it just felt like the perfect way to cap off that episode, that Cold Open, of just like, oh my God, like look what he did to the Eagle van. So that's kind of, but it was something we talked about in the room all the time, that like we had to do it.
Yeah. So I have a quick follow-up. There must have been a discussion about the Challenger, whether or not Johnny was ever going to get that back.
Yeah, there were always, I think there were even versions of it appearing in as early as season 3. We had ideas about it, but we're saving it for the right time, is all I'll say.
Okay, fair. So
maybe we'll see in the future, maybe not. The Cobra Mobile is like any character from the Karate Kid Miyagi verse. Anyone could show up. So who knows? Who knows if the car will come back or not?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of facets of the Cold Open and things that may or may not have been, we may have heard a rumor that framing and blocking to make it look like Johnny and Daniel were about to kiss may have been someone's idea.
I can't take any credit for any of that. I think that I totally hear. I listened to that podcast that Joe said. I cannot take any credit for that. I'll say that Marielle did like an incredible job. This is her first time being on Cobra Kai, and she came in with like just this brilliant vision for the Cold Open about the camera moving one way with Johnny and the other way, and like she actually had this amazing like she put together a what do you call it, like a pre-vids of like what she imagined the cold open to be, that she shot with her partner in her apartment, like every camera angle, all that stuff. So it's all credit goes to her for the framing of all that stuff. But yeah, I love that cold open. That cold open is just so much fun, and it's just it was just like a blast to kind of attack it and be like, this is Johnny and Daniel's best day. This is like the two of them at their peak. This is like the thing, life is good. They figured it out and things are in sync and things are working. And it was just like so much fun to attack that cold open.
Well, one of my favorite moments, and not because of what they're doing, it's maybe more of the framing of it, but it's when they're sharing lunch.
Yeah, that was the thing we always talked about doing. And yeah, that scene's amazing. That moment's amazing.
Them sitting on that sparring deck, it reminds me of that historical picture of, I think it takes place in New York, where like all the workers are like sitting on the beam.
Up on the
totally
up on the the Empire State Building.
Yeah. Okay,
yes,
yeah,
totally.
That's what it reminded me of. And so
I totally get that vibe.
Yeah, and it's just it. These guys are just hard at work, just taking a break and sharing a little bit of lunch. So while people are probably like, "Oh, that's cute," the chopstick. I'm like, there's something more about this very thing. So yeah, so I thought that was really cool.
That's the vibe that we're totally going for. Like I'll be honest, I wasn't imagining that when I wrote it, at least, but like I totally get the vibe, and that is the like the feeling. It was just kind of nice to sort of have a moment where I'm like, I don't remember if that was my ad or it was something that we discussed in the room or pitched. So, it's one of those things that I can't remember where it originated from, but it was something that's always stayed in the montage in terms of like just the fun of Daniel, like actually taking a bite of that bologna and like enjoying it. I think the chopsticks, like him offering chopsticks and trying to like taking it with his fingers might have been my pitch, but like, I think, the idea of Daniel taking a bite of the bologna is just such a nice, like you give a little, you get a little kind of moment. And it was just, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, once upon a time, Daniel was a poor kid in the 80s. He has lived on some bologna.
Exactly.
He just didn't want to admit that he still liked it, I'm sure. Were there ever any different kinds of foods bantered around to be part of that? Or was it always going to be the dumplings and the bologna?
I think there was one version where it was sushi, but I think, just like doing multiple takes with sushi for a long period of time, I think we just ended up switching to dumplings. So I think it was it might have been like a California roll or something that he like popped in his mouth. But either way, but it was always the bologna.
California roll. It doesn't even have fish in it, but maybe that might be something that Johnny's more willing to try.
Something Johnny might actually, I figured Johnny might like feel more comfortable going for something like that. Just like so much,
I mean, that's the anti-dragon roll, if I've ever heard one.
My God, exactly.
I'm trying not to jump around because there is so much in here. Obviously, this is also the same episode where Terry Silver goes back to the dojo, or to and has to talk with Kreese. But this is also where we see some more of Johnny's unorthodox training techniques, including the roof jump. So not super safe. You probably saw a few like reaction videos on YouTube talking about like Spider Sam
sure.
This before we even knew it was really Sam. Like I think I remember seeing that, and I go, that could be anybody. Totally. That could be a new recruit that they haven't shown us yet, and stuff like that. But did you remember kind of just talking about like some of Johnny's teaching techniques and when this came about?
Yeah, we were talking a lot about like what is basically the way we attack this episode, especially for the kids, is like what is the core that each of them are being taught. And like for Miguel, it's about, it's not a straight, it's like the difference being Johnny's always about, you have to move forward in a straight path, and Daniel's very much about circles. And we wanted to think about, we didn't just want to do something like the like the cement truck. Like we want to come up with something a little different that would kind of embody the simplest fundamentals of these lessons. And I think it was Bill Posley who pitched the idea of like a jump of some sort. And in earlier versions, it was jumping off a cliff into water,
Right.
into like a you know, like a lake bed or something, or you know, or a quarry. And there were versions of that I wrote that had that. But you know, shooting a bunch of kids jumping into water in the middle of the winter wasn't like, you know, the best idea. So you know, we pivoted to the rooftop, and the rooftop was always like a you know, we always had that in the back of our mind. So it became that, and we always just loved the idea of Sam having this awesome badass moment where she was able to jump. Actually, in versions, we actually shot this. There were versions where all the kids made the jump, and that footage lives somewhere. But in the end, we cut it because it's just more about Sam's moment. But we had these great jokes where they jumped. I love this bit. They jump to the other side. The kids jump to the other side. They're all on the other side. They're all feeling amazing. They all did this thing that Johnny's, you know, helped them do. They feel this power. And then one of the kids is like, how do we get down? And they're like looking around, and Johnny's, and like one of the kids is like, oh, there's a door. And they go to the door, and the door's locked. And now they're stuck on this roof. And Johnny's like, hold on, I'll go get you. And he goes to his door, and his door is locked. And now they're both stuck on these roofs. And then Nate goes like, Sensei Lawrence, I have to go to the bathroom. It's a number 2. And it like ended with him like gripping his stomach and bending over. And in the end, we trimmed it all out, and maybe it'll show up on a deleted scene. But it was, I love that joke, but it's really just so much about Sam's moment. Yeah, so that's kind of where it kind of came from.
Nate can maybe take a shit in a tuba.
Exactly. Exactly.
Why did they have that up there on the roof?
What, the
What's
tuba?
that?
A tuba, yeah, a tuba on the roof for him.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to call back to our interview, you know, with John and Hayden, where they talked about the cards. You know,
Yes.
the running joke.
The bird shits and tuba card has to be on our. We always have, you know, like, just for those who don't know this, it's like the way that we card everything on the walls is we have the seasonal grid where we're tracking all the characters, every episode, where their headspace is, all that stuff, so we can like quickly look on the wall and like know what we've done and where we're going and where the holes are. Then we have each episode that we're breaking. We have cards for that. You know, we usually have 3 episodes up at a time because so much of our show is about like, okay, well, where is the episode going? And sometimes we have ideas that we want to throw cards up, and then we have what's like called like it's almost like a graveyard of ideas, where it's just like funny jokes or bits or things that have never landed or whatever. So we have that on the wall, and sometimes we'll like look in the wall and be like, what if we did that one? And actually, there was a few moments in season 5 where we had that, where we were like, what if we combine this one and this one? That was where, like, I think, you know, stealing the snake in season 3 was one that had been on the wall since season 2. And we were like, we need a B story for Robbie. What if we have him steal a snake in that episode? So one of the cards that we've always had is Bert shits and tuba. And like, who knows if it'll ever make it, but it's like, at this rate, it's ritual. It like has to be on the wall. Otherwise, it's not a season of Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So if Owen hadn't heard that interview yet, hopefully so there's 2 chances here. Owen's gonna get like, well, I had a scene like that and I didn't get one. Kind of, you know, on the topic of like Bert and Nate, I know for me, on my first watch of season 4, I was looking forward to some exchange between the two, because you wrote a fantastic one in season 3. You know, if you die, you know, I will go to your funeral. I hate your stupid face. Obviously, they're friends in this season, so we weren't going to get anything like that. But in this episode, we're using Nate as a system of measurement.
Yeah, that was actually, I can say, was one of my jokes or one of my pitches, because I just love the idea. It just made me laugh so hard that Dimitri would use Nate like that. So yeah, we do introduce what is it, 14 Nate's high, or whatever.
I do remember watching that, and I legit was thinking like, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know what that is. And then when Nate says like, can you please not use me as a system? I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was I love that joke. That's a fun one.
So what kind of insight can you, as the creative mind behind this wonderful episode, give us into pizza making, domesticating, catching beer bottle caps that are being thrown across the kitchen? Was that scripted? Did Ralph just get like tired of shooting and reach out and grab the thing out of midair?
No, that was always scripted.
Okay.
We wanted to do originally Sam was gonna do the bottle, she like I think it's an episode. No, it's not 4. It's 5, episode 5. In episode 5, Sam flicks the bottle like Johnny. And originally that actually happened in my episode and we trimmed it out. So we did the bottle catch as a way to set that up and remind the audience that Johnny does that. So that was, Ralph catching was always scripted. And much like him punching the baseballs, very few takes of actually having to do, like he caught that thing. And I love that it ties into the cold open where it's like, you want this to be, these are the best days. Like they're coming over for dinner. Like we also knew the fans would be like, oh my God, they're having dinner together. And, for me, some of my favorite scenes that I love to write are when you've got a bunch of them at a table together, because you've got the peanut gallery, everyone talking, like, episode 9 in season 2 is like one of my favorite scenes that I wrote. And so that scene was just like about like, okay, well, let's have a family dinner. And it was actually a really tough scene it was a tough needle to thread because you're doing so much. It's like you're setting up Johnny and Daniel and their relationship a little bit, you're showing how they're doing, but then you're also setting up Sam's storyline for the season and Miguel's storyline for the season and moving forward and setting up, their episode, like where they're feeling in their episode where Miguel doesn't feel like he's enough, in Daniel's eyes or in general, because, he is the Reseda kid. And you're getting this thing where Sam is like, is kind of, the LaRusso 2.0, all of it, the LaRusso 2.0 of it all, which will, obviously tie in my other episode 9. So, we really had to set up a lot of things and set up storylines and use the fact that, Miguel looking at Sam and seeing where Sam is in her father's eyes and where he is in his own. It's just like there was a lot to juggle, and I feel good about where it landed. It's a lot of fun, and the wine spill was always there because we wanted to have a moment like where Daniel kicks the brick in Karate Kid, where he like kicks the brick in front of Allie's house. We wanted to have a moment like that where he just embarrasses himself in front of Daniel. So there was a lot of, and also it's tough because we didn't want Daniel to come off like oblivious, like he was a Reseda kid. So it's also a tough needle to thread in that way too, where you want him to be like supportive, but Miguel is the one who's sort of like in his own head about it and thinking like, well, I'm not good enough. And also this is the first moment where we're really seeing Miguel, and this is really about Miguel and Sam being in a relationship that's like relatively stable for most of it, up until Joe and Luan mess it all up in the prom episode.
Right.
But it's like, it's fun to see the two of them kind of interacting like a couple and like having them over for dinner and, getting Carmen in there and starting Carmen and Amanda's friendship, which is always really fun. So anyway, that's a long way of saying it was like a blast to write, and it does so much in such little time in terms of setting up characters and relationships and storylines for the season and all that.
It does.
There was also, before this scene, there was even Johnny mentions something about a cream puff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we definitely threw that in. We had to do it.
Yeah. And I think we might have already skipped over this sequence as well during the training where Eagle Fang is trying to chase the koi or whatever. And then Miguel gets wet behind the ears.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Another callback to Karate Kid.
Tons of callbacks. This one is filthy with them. Absolutely filthy with callbacks.
Yeah.
So you got the Easter egg hunt episode out of season 4 then.
Yes. Yeah. Tons of Easter eggs. And also just like, I think my favorite thing about writing on Cobra Kai is I love recontextualizing the stuff we've seen. Like, one of my favorite scenes from season 2 is when, Daniel brings Sam. Oh no, season 3. I'm sorry. When Daniel brings Sam to talk about Karate Kid 3, about not losing to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to take those storylines that, some people might have felt were silly, where it's like, wait, he's beating him with kata, but like recontextualizing it in this way where it's like, no, he was overcoming something. So it was always fun to like kind of take that. And that's what I love about my episode where, Daniel's talking about, the Karate Kid 2 and 3. And from his point of view and the financial aspect of it, and the fact that, he spent his money and he didn't have any money, the fact that he never went to college. it's all these things that I feel like the fans are always like talking about or joking about. And it was fun to kind of take that idea, that story piece that, you know, really gets kind of glossed over in the movies. It's a big part of the plot, but you know, the ramifications of it, you never really see. And it's fun to like show Miguel that. I just love Ralph's performance too, where he's just like, I never went to college. Like he just nails that scene, not to jump around too much, but yeah, like I really loved, I love the Easter eggs. I love the references. It's just like, this episode is just so much fun to write with all of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember, because I know that there was a mention of what do you call it, Carmen showing up in a separate car. So there's a little talk about that. I thought that was pretty interesting too. That was that because obviously we know that Carmen had asked previously that you know, maybe we should slow it down a bit. Prior to them going to the Russos to eat, was it more of like, okay, well, this is part of that slowing down, or are they just coming from different places? Because I just thought it was interesting that they decided, because like that's a little obvious for people, like the family specifically, like Miguel, you know, like is there something wrong because they showed up in a different car? You get what I'm trying to ask? Like
Totally. That
yeah.
was definitely leaning more towards the things are rocky between them. Like not necessarily they came from two different locations, but just that like, oh, they didn't come together. And I think using that as a way, again, to like set up the end of this episode where, you know, spoiler alert, Johnny and Carmen have an amazing kiss and they're back together at the end of this one. So we wanted to set that up as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. And because, you know, Daniel and Johnny and Carmen and Amanda have been on double dates. So it felt like he would have clocked that, you know, they showed up in separate cars. And just, it's always like, because we have like, we're juggling a million characters, it's always about attacking it in the most efficient way possible to set up the storyline so it doesn't, so you're, because you know Johnny's relationship in this episode is kind of in the back, is not really the focus of it. His focus is really about Sam, and we wanted them to hook up at the end, and using Sam's jump as a way for Johnny to be the one to take the plunge and to take a jump and be like, no, this is what I want to be with you. And we our show's so good about, excuse me, sorry about that. Our show is so good about setting up and paying off. And sometimes it's as small a setup as that to just plant that in the audience's head. Right. Johnny and Carmen are not like strictly together right now. They're at this dinner, but they're not a couple. And, you know, to remind us that like, okay, by the end of this, like when they hook up, it's going to feel like a bigger moment because we've set up that the two of them are not together.
I like the way that it also talk about doing double duty. It shows where Johnny is with Carmen. It shows kind of where Carmen is with Johnny. And then we look and we see her and Amanda in there giggling, and you just know they're giggling about the boys, right?
Exactly.
But Daniel is astute enough to pick up on that. He's brave enough to mention it. And Johnny is forthright enough to answer him.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole new level in their interaction with each other too.
Totally. It was so much fun to come at this episode where like they will always have their differences, but this is the best of times. And it was really fun to like have these two characters talk to each other like adults. And then you still have like Johnny call his son like, you're still a piece of shit. Like Johnny's still gonna be Johnny and right. All that. So it was really fun to kind of see that growth. And like and also like Daniel says like, you know, hey, get the broccoli rabe off the stove, you know, the green stuff, which calls back to the green stuff in episode 2, where he said no green stuff on the taco, like using lines from their past to kind of, you know, it's always fun to like have a little bit of tension between the two of them, but seeing like, no, they're adults and, you know, they're, you know, it's like you mentioned the lover boy thing in episode 2, like it's fun to kind of treat that stuff and not have them constantly be like defensive about those things. It's more they get defensive about their karate and their styles, and using the karate and styles as a metaphor for like the way they look at the world, as opposed to strictly having them always just hate each other. It's just more color and more fun.
You just kind of mentioned like the Johnny and Anthony there. Great callback to season 1. Wait, are you the son or
yeah? Well, we knew the audience would be like, is that the same kid? So we were like, we have to at least call it out.
Yeah. Was there any other alternate lines, or was that all on paper?
We had, I think the only thing that changed were Whopper Juniors. There might have been alts to that, and I can't remember what they were, but I think Whopper Juniors was always the best one.
Yeah. um, there's, I don't know if I have too many to ask about, but I really love the conversation between Johnny and Sam on the rooftop, and Johnny saying, "Well, at least I'm doing what I love." And all of that. Can you talk about it? Because it gets pretty emotional quick.
Yeah, that was actually a pitch from Billy. Like we had a version of it where it was like they're really antagonistic towards each other, and calling back the sitting in the back seat thing, and the fact that Sam was in the back seat when they crashed into Johnny, and you can't sit in the back seat your whole life, and her being in the back seat of that was always in there. And Billy read it and was like, I'd love to bring up the fact that he just loves being a sensei and calling that in. I think that was a great idea. So we added that in, and it just makes that scene sing. It's just so nice to hear him say that. And for Sam to also understand that. And it's we wanted to mirror Daniel and Miguel's conversation, which is a very emotional conversation too. And what is Johnny's version of that emotional conversation? What does Sam need to hear that's going to reach her? And I think it's a combination of those things where it's not just the tough love, but also just the brutal honesty of Sam calling out, well, you don't have your life figured out. And and Johnny admitting that, saying you're right, I don't, but at least I'm doing what I love. And I'm going to do that every damn day. And Sam understanding, Sam is coming into this very much biased from Daniel, at the end of the day, before this episode, she was always going to take Daniel's side, and understanding his point of view a little bit more just goes such a long way for her story and what we wanted to do in back, especially the back half, where she kind of starts doing more Eagle Fang and starts getting more aggressive. And it's so funny. I know Joe and Luan mentioned this in theirs, where episode 2 and episode 8 are kind of a part 1, part 2 in some ways. And episode 3 and episode 9 are very much like that too, where, things we set up in 3 about Daniel LaRusso 2.0 and Johnny come to a head in 9, which was really sad, or at least the tension kind of explodes in 9 and then will be settled in 10. But yeah, that's kind of how we approach that scene. And I love that scene. I mean, Billy is, when we shot that on the roof, Billy just absolutely nailed it. And Mary too, those two together, that was what was kind of fun about this season. At the beginning of every season, we talk about what are the things you're excited about? What are the things that the potential of the season that you want to write to? And one of the things I said was, and it might have been an obvious thing, is this just feels like a fun opportunity to move the characters around and see pairings that we haven't seen yet. And one of the biggest ones for me was Johnny and Sam. I was really, really excited to be able to have those two be in a room together and have them talk to each other. And also to an extent, Daniel and Miguel, even though they did speak to each other last year in season 3, just having more of that is just always so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Moving away just for a little bit from the best of times side of this tale of 2 dojos, we've got the worst of times. And we've got Terry Silver with some sincerely traumatic creme brulee.
It really is the most traumatic creme brulee. I just want to say, Thomas Ian Griffith, I know you guys met him. He is incredible. He is so good, and he is so game. And writing Terry Silver is an absolute blast. I especially Silver and Kreese. The two of writing Kreese stuff is so fun because there's a touch of arch and stuff like that, and letting the two of them be in a scene together is so much fun. And the creme brulee, when we were breaking that story and doing rewrites and stuff, they were just let's come up with a way to at least motivate the flashback. So I pitched them that, and they were like, okay, let's do it. Because I very much just the clicking made me think of the gun. Well, that was the thing. I kind of worked backwards. I was like, okay, well, we need to hear the gun. So it was okay, well, maybe it's a I think technically it was a French toast creme brulee or something like that. It doesn't matter what the food was, but yeah, I kind of worked backwards, where it was okay, well, the clicking of the gun felt so important because that was such a big, he watched his friend get shot in front of him, and just working backwards is just so funny to me that that dessert is what triggers this entire story, more or less. But yeah.
So since we're kind of talking about Silver and Kreese, and I know we're running out of time with you here, Can you talk about like the flashback of the tattoos and also
Absolutely.
Silver visiting Kreese at the dojo?
Yeah, it's funny. Like we knew we wanted to see them get the tattoos. We that was something we've been talking about for years. And coming at this, like it's funny. We actually watched. There was a thread between the big three and me and Joe and Luan, where we were trying to find what part of Terry Silver's body we haven't seen. Because he's naked, he's pretty much in a towel through a bunch of scenes in the third movie, and we like had to, if you get it removed, you would have seen it, and he would have had it, he wouldn't have gotten it removed yet. So like we had to find the right spot. We were talking about maybe it's on his arm. No, you see his arm in this scene. Like, well, maybe it's on his back shoulder, like behind his wingtip. No, you see it in the hot tub from that. Like we were literally trading movie stills to find it. So we found that spot on the side, and it worked out great. And also the irony was that the actor, that is exactly that's the only place where he actually has a tattoo. So they had to cover up his actual tattoo to then put on this new tattoo. And that scene was super fun. Like, I loved I did not get a chance to write any of the flashbacks last year in season 3. So it was a blast to like have these two come back and have an emotional scene. And, I loved also just like the bringing up the All Valley, the new All Valley and how many years that's been going, and the fact that they joined it early and just building out their past is so much fun. And those two actors are awesome, and getting Barrett back was great. And like, it's a great scene, and it's so much fun seeing those two together and seeing again the best of times that led to the worst of times. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm just now making that connection to the parallels of them. Yeah. Brihana, did you have anything to add to okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say Kenny. This is, I mean, we've met him before, but this is where we really start digging into some seeing just how like, yeah, he's super fast, and we've seen that, but he's also really nervous, and he's way smaller than Sean, and all this different, and Dallas's face through the entire thing just like completely destroys me.
Dallas is incredible. He's such a good actor. He's so much fun. He's such a nice kid. He's just like, he's great.
I can't believe that Major Payne was an accident.
No, that wasn't an accident. That wasn't an accident at all. I actually remember me and Stacy Harmon were texting back and forth because we had to name Sean in the episode, in his episode last year in season 3. We were like, what should his name be? And we were like, what about Payne? Like, as a nod. I don't think it was. I mean, did someone say it was an accident? It might have been. The major thing might have been an accident, but
John said it was an accident.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, that might have been an accident, but we knew that like the pain of it all was like, oh, okay, that feels really fun, and that was like kind of a fun coincidence. But that name is always just such a great name for him.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I know Martin Lawrence, when he was on Martin, his name was Martin Payne, spelled the same way.
Oh, that I didn't realize. That's really
funny. So that was kind of what I was thinking when season 3 came out. I was like, oh, I wonder if that's maybe where they got that. And then when me and Brihana were watching this, and like, oh, his dad's a Major Payne. And so we brought that up to John, and he was like, you know what, like that was an accident. So maybe when he found out, there was no connection thing. He thought
I'd have to, like, honestly, I don't have my old phone, so I don't know if that text exists. I'd have to look up and see if how that back and forth went down. But either way, it's great. It's a great nod because it just is so funny.
Yeah,
that it worked out that way.
But yeah, with Kenny or Robbie visiting Kenny at home. And find out more about Sean's backstory. Can you talk about the Payne brothers, or maybe the Payne family dynamic?
Yeah. And this episode was like just so much about getting some more context about Kenny, and also like Robbie can relate to that, and letting Robbie have, this is like the beginning of Robbie being a sensei, and Robbie not just being in this tournament to like get back at his parents, or to like use Cobra Kai to to get that power and to focus his anger, but it was also just so much about like giving him a weakness, and not a weakness, but like actually having him have emotional states to why he's in Cobra Kai, and having him kind of be on the other side of it, like he, seeing how hard it is to be a sensei, and to kind of almost be Daniel or Johnny for a little bit to another kid, and letting that relationship grow, and have a big brother. Robbie's an only child, and Kenny had a big brother, and letting them kind of have the big brother little brother dynamic, which is so important, it's just so fun to see them together, and also it's like, how does Robbie teach somebody? He's never had to teach someone before, really. I mean, he does a little bit in the episodes, but like this, like to have a one-on-one sensei moment, like with Daniel, he's like, he has his own way of doing it, and he's like kind of struggling with that. And it was just really fun to kind of attack that and talk about that backstory, and for Robbie to relate to that, and to also get a new, to get a new context of Sean and understanding why he was in there, because they have their relationship. So yeah.
Did you come up with Kyler's last name?
Park?
Yeah, because this is where we find that out from Kreese.
Yeah, I don't. Whenever it's with names, we all come up with like a bunch of pitches, like, and I honestly can't remember if I came up with it or if it was like Josh or anyone or Joe. But yeah, this is the one where we reveal Kyler's last name. That's right.
Yeah, Mr. Park. So just one of those things. I was like, any Parks in pop culture do I know? But
Yeah.
the thing with Korean last names, there's like, I'm just throwing out a number, but there's probably like a dozen very common Korean ones. So like it literally could have been anything. So but I did wonder if they were gonna make any kind of connections to like Harold Lee, but I know there's Devin Lee, also.
Yeah, I think Devin Lee was more of a callback to Harold Lee. But yeah, Kyler, yeah, I can't remember the origin of it. It just sounded right. Kyler Park.
Yeah, and that's probably it too. Like, like what rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Like Kyler Lee, he's already got an L in Kyler.
Yeah,
I don't know.
For sure. And Park, it has that like hard consonant too. It just sounds like, strong. So that's kind of where it came from, I think.
I like that.
So we'll come back to, you have another last name that we have all been anxiously awaiting to find out about. It was also yours. At least you got the episode. At least it was in your episode, but we'll come back to that when we get ready for the All Valley. Did you see in your head, or were you on set the day that they dressed out those that alley? Were you expecting just how hinky and skanky those mattresses were going to be down there?
Yes. I was on set for all of episode 3 and actually for episode 4 as well. I worked with Mary, because the way that we did in season 3 was they directed in blocks, and sorry, my daughter's walking past. We directed in blocks, so Marielle was directing episode 3 and 4 together, and when you direct in a block, you're not shooting the scenes in order. Obviously, you're shooting whatever is best for production. So I actually got to be on set for a lot of 4 as well. But yeah, for 3, we went up to that roof and saw those mattresses, and I was just like absolutely dying at how they were set up and how they looked. It was just so funny. The mattresses thing was always like a bit that we had in the script from the very beginning about, I think there was a line about it, like how he was like, oh, I think a hobo grabbed one of them. Like, I think there were less of them in earlier drafts, where it was like one mattress. Because is there one now? I can't remember. Is there one or 3?
There's 2 for sure. There might be a third underneath. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think at one point there was a line of dialogue that was like, "Oh, it's fine." He's like, "Oh, actually, there were supposed to be 3. I think a hobo walked off with one of them. Ah, you're fine." But yeah, those matches were always so nasty and so funny.
I love that Johnny just always has these lines or instances where there's a mention of, like when he's dojo shopping, and there's a mention of like, oh, I think I saw a homeless person take a dump in the vending machine, or there's a meth head at the park that used the water fountain to wash his ass with. So that's always something.
Oh my God.
And the best part is know that they're all Lynn, right? The meth head, they're all Lynn.
It's her entourage. you know?
I know. It would have been great. We should have done that where like when you see Lynn in episode 6, is it 6 or 7? Where she should have been sitting on a mattress. That would have been a nice nod that she like found it and dragged it all the way back. But yeah, those mattresses are gnarly.
I know that you didn't write that, but since you brought it up, was there anything you might be able to share about like why there was no dialogue with Lynn, or maybe there was that was cut?
Yeah, we actually did have a moment between Lynn and the aunt, and it just like, you have these buttons to scenes, and sometimes you're kind of looking at the scene and being like, we need to stay on the emotion, and it just never quite worked where it was like, oh, you had a back and forth, but then you still want to land on Tori, and it felt so tonally off to like have a joke, but then still land on Tori's emotion that's going to carry her to the next like rest of the episode and season. So unfortunately, it might, maybe it'll show up on a deleted scene. So there was something, and it was good, and we love Lynn, and we just have so many characters that like, unfortunately some come back and some don't, and hopefully we'll find more of Lynn in the future, especially as the series continues.
Yeah, you mentioned before we recorded that you listened to our season 4 recap, and
I did. It was really great.
And I loved what Brihana had to say. Like, Brianna, did you say you like to think that she said something like, "It's okay, baby," or something?
Yeah, that she called Tori baby, and she comforted her somewhere, off screen.
I think one version of it that we had was it was like the aunt and her like being aggressive to each other, like Lynn saying something along the lines of like, "Stay away from this," and the aunt like just biting her head off a little bit, like just these two people who are so aggressive, just kind of like attacking each other. But I love that idea, Brihana, of Lynn being like very soothing or whatever. So that's a nice idea. I like that.
Well, it's that's her Mart. Those are her kids. And just because, as far as she's concerned, their father could go jump in a fire, but
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. We touched on Kenny, Robbie's visit. Miguel. So we got more Miguel and Daniel. At the dojo. So this is something I definitely wanted to ask you. So as they are leaving for the day, Miguel gets a call from Carmen. Something happened with the vehicle and all of that. I feel there must have been a discussion whether or not Miguel would ask Daniel for help. Like, right? Like he's a sensei. He's an adult. He knows the family. Well, why couldn't Miguel have asked Daniel for the help rather than saying, "Hey, we'll take care of it"?
Our headspace was, Miguel's headspace in that episode is so much like, I want to look strong to Daniel, like, and I don't want to ask for help. And I think like he doesn't. I don't think he's. I honestly don't see him as someone who's comfortable enough to ask Daniel for help, especially like how the dinner went so poorly, and then he embarrassed himself, falling into the water. And I think he wanted to be like, no, it's fine, I've got it. And I think like that's so much to Daniel's character too, to be like, let me help you. And I think like that allows, I think it's just, I think back about when I was like that age, and I, knew my girlfriend's parents, and wanting to be like, no, I'm an adult, I'm a strong, like, you can look at me like an equal, and allowing a parent or an older, person to just be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, like, you don't look weak asking for the help of someone you might not know super well. And, or at least like have a newer connection, I should say. And I think that's why we wanted to do that, was to allow Daniel to kind of have a moment where he's like, no, I can help you, like, use me. Let me teach you. And also for Miguel to start to like kind of let his guard down a little bit with Daniel, and to let him not feel so much like, oh, I've got to like be this, show that I'm worthy enough for Daniel. And, there were versions where like the car broke down in front of the dojo, and things like that. And you actually had a moment where, they go out and push, like in the movie, they pop it. We actually had many versions of pop it, but it was one of those things where like, the way that our sets work and our locations work, it's just like, it never would have looked very good. So we ended up trimming that, but that's kind of where that's why Miguel doesn't ask for help immediately.
Okay. Yeah, I love that.
Now I know that because of the way it's shot, I assume we are not meant to see the label. I think the label is backwards on purpose, but that's not going to stop me from asking, do we know what medication Terry is meant to be on that he stops taking as the season goes on?
So we don't, I honestly couldn't remember what it was. We wanted to be careful with that because we didn't want to be specific to, we didn't want to say anything specifically about like mental health or medication or the kind of thing he has. We just wanted to allude to the fact that like there's something going on, and him stopping to take his medication might play into that, might not play into that. So that's why we don't specifically see the label.
Okay. I just think because I mean it's pretty clear that he's like doing this descent into psychopathy again.
Definitely.
And poor Cheyenne, I feel, I mean, get out there and get some self-worth, girl. Quit with the, oh, you must just be busy. Kick him to the curb and go find a new man. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I think it shows, it also, it's so much like, you know, I think it kind of like ties into the way that we wanted her to care about him and to be this anchor for him. And in terms of in terms of this new life that he's found himself in, that he wants to have. And the idea, like if Cheyenne did say like, forget you, I'm leaving, we wanted to be more about his choice, that he's the one that's kind of abandoning her because he did have kind of a good life and he did have like, was comfortable, and Cheyenne clearly did care about him. And I think, I'm not saying that Kreese was wrong in what he found in Terry, but I think there's something interesting about, we felt we wanted Terry to be the one to make the choice and to be the one that shut down Cheyenne and walked away and ghosted her basically. I'm not disagreeing with you about it, her like, go get your self-worth. And you know, that might've been the next text
right,
that we didn't see. But that was the goal of that moment of like feeling like, oh wow, he is like pulling away. And this feeling of like, you know, Terry's very much lost at sea in this episode where he's like having these memories and but he doesn't want to go back to Cobra Kai and stepping foot in that dojo. It's a big step. And honestly, you could argue that the second he steps foot in the dojo, he's coming back, you know, like when he takes off his shoes, which is such an amazing moment. So yeah, that's kind of where our heads were at with that moment.
I mean, as we get ready to wrap up, let's talk about that moment. I mean, that is one of the first images we saw of season 4. Terry Silver in that blue shirt, you know, and already everybody was like, oh, you know, so we didn't know that there was going to be a rift between the two, and a lot of people were kind of analyzing like Thomas's expression on his face, like he does look upset. And so, you know, and then we were trying to tie it into like the image of them at dinner together. It's like, well, which one came first and all of that. But I just wanted to throw this out before we get more into it. But one of my favorite lines of the entire season, because I've never heard the expression, but in context, like I know there are other versions of it, but why can't you just let sleeping dogs lie?
Yeah.
Like, I just love, when I heard that, I was like, it, you know, it's just one of those things that I'm like, I'm never gonna forget that line. You know, like later on we hear like, it's just like man from heaven, baby. You know, it's just it's one of those things. But
thank you. Yeah,
but that line where I've never heard it. So can you talk about writing that line?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually gonna see. I'm curious. I wonder if how early that script was there. How early that line was there. You know, it was something that was always just like. That just epitomizes so much of like their relationship. And let me see. I wonder how early that line was there. Let's
see. Did you and I have the discussion of that line? Was that in our season 4 recap? I feel like I spoke to somebody because I was trying to ask if that was like a common expression.
So I don't know if I wrote it or Hayden wrote it, but it was, you know, we knew that it was just this feeling of like, you could have left well enough alone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, and sleeping dogs lie was an expression I had heard before and known before. And it just like ties into like the way he looks at the world. So yeah, that was something, you know, there were earlier versions of the scene where he was like coming in a little bit more, very early versions where he's coming in a little bit more like, what have you got here? I'm curious about this, and still being argumentative. But then as we made changes, we realized he should come in way more hot. And that was where that came in. So you could have just left well enough alone. You know what I mean? That's kind of where that came from, the letting sleeping dogs lie.
I mean, and now that you said that, and I feel like an idiot for not even picking
No,
up on
no.
that, but even his the cadence and his enunciations of those where it sounds like, you know, you can just leave the well enough alone.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's also like, I think Sleeping Dogs Lie is also like, not to get super like in depth about it, but the image of like a sleeping dog is kind of what Terry was in a lot of ways, where he was like content,
Mhm.
But asleep ultimately. His eyes
Yeah.
were closed to what he was and what he should become and all that. And I think like just that sort of feeling of like you woke the bear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now I'm here, and now what now this is your fault, and now I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? He's very much in a fever in this episode, where he's like, I'm angry, I'm upset, I don't want to join Cobra Kai, but I'm not satisfied with where my life is, and it's all because you woke me up. And I think like the fact that his hair is wild, it's so great when he just ties it back at the end. You know what I mean? Like it just all ties into that stuff.
It's also very Karate Kid, very Halloween fight, because that is the for a different reason, but it's almost the exact same speech that Johnny gives Daniel before he almost kills him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
You couldn't leave well enough alone, could you? You had to push it. And
yeah,
and that's what Kreese is doing. He just keeps pushing.
Exactly.
Okay, I mean, I just want to go back. I just watched the episode again last night. Like, I was like, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it because, you know, like obviously with your insight and stuff like that, it really and speaking to all of you guys, it really enhances like our repeat reviewings, you know,
Sure,
of the show. So it's like, you know, because again, the show just 10 episodes a season. This episode's 34 minutes, I believe. And speaking with Joan Lawan, we heard 408 was like 40, almost like 7 minutes.
It came in longer.
Off.
It was longer than episode 9. It was like,
yeah.
It was a monster episode. I mean, it was huge when it came in, and the script was always huge because that is like doing so much. I mean, that episode has to do a ton. And unfortunately, a lot of things we loved had to hit the cutting room floor in that episode, which I'm sure they, you know, I know they told you about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, you know.
So, Brihana, what question do you have about with Terry and Kreese here in the dojo at the end?
About Terry and Kreese, not much. I do have one last question before we wrap up, though.
Okay, yeah, I think I have like one as well.
Okay. Great. Johnny's finally getting his chance here to give Carmen his big heartfelt love confession. And he does it in front of her mother, which probably doesn't bother him, but 3 absolute strangers. But then it doesn't seem like it bothers either one of them anyway, and they just start making out in front of everybody. So, what kind of headspace did you want Johnny in when he came to that door?
So I think like what I love about so that scene is like, okay, this is Johnny's job, right? Like it's even the way Mario brilliantly framed it, where it's like mirroring, you know, Sam's feet walking, dropping the bag, like Sam drops the backpack. It all mirrors, which was an awesome idea. And I did in script like want to mirror that, where it's like walking just like Sam does, and she was the one who was like, oh, it should look like the exact same. And he is a man on a mission. He is coming into the scene with only one goal, and that's to get Carmen back and to like make up for the mistake, you know, for what happened in the first episode, where like they had a shift because of a you know, a misunderstanding. And I think like what I love about this moment is when the doors opened, it could have been too easy for Johnny to be like, oh, let's talk about it later. But I love that he looks at this moment. It's a joke. It's a joke on one hand, but it's also like a hurdle. And he's just like, forget it. I don't care. I'm just gonna look at you like you're the only one here. And it's just the fun of like it's like our what's that movie? Jerry Maguire moment. You know what I mean? Like having the audience there a little bit and having them kind of like playing cards or whatever. So that was the idea, was he was so focused on getting Carmen back that he didn't care that other people were there. Let him watch. And that's just such a Johnny thing too. He's sort of like, I don't care what I do. I don't care what you think about what I do. So enjoy. You know what I mean? And just living in the passion and the moment of it.
Oh yeah, just tunnel vision right there. Yeah, because we asked Vanessa about that sequence as well. Actually, I do have 2, but one's more of a technical kind of a quick one. But
please.
So we have been hearing about like the block shootings. You know, like these characters we have now. Let's do this stuff now. Is that a little bit more challenging than what you guys are used to in the previous seasons?
No, we've done that for the past 3 years. I think past 4 years now. We've done block shooting where directors would shoot episode 1 and 2 together, episode 3 and 4 together, and so on and so forth. So this year, actually in season 5, we didn't do block shooting. We actually shot one episode at a time, which was much easier. Part of our job on set for, not just the big 3, but for Joe Luwan and myself and Bob Dearden, who was on set for season 5, our job is to like know where the show's going, remember the headspace of the character, and to keep it all tracked. And that was like kind of what we do is we're like, actually, you have to keep like, I would say to Marielle, like, oh, can we try one like this? Because in this previous scene, this happens, and stuff that she might not know, or like, or it's going to lead to this moment, and her understanding that, or the director understanding that context changes the direction of the scene, because we have to set things up and stuff like that. So it's definitely not like an easy thing to block shoot, but that's like part of our job, is to keep it all straight and to know like, okay, this happens before this moment, and this happens pays off later in this way, and kind of mirroring that stuff. And the way it works is we have a tone meeting before we shoot, where we talk about every scene and talk about the headspace and the tone and where it's going and stuff like that. So part of our job is just to like constantly be like the Bible on set, answering questions like, if they're like, oh, the way this was written, I'm bumping on this. Oh, well, let's try it like this. Maybe this will help solve it. So, the block shooting has its own set of, hurdles because of that. But, anytime you're shooting, you're already shooting out of order anyway. So it's always about like remembering what's their head coming into the scene, what is their head coming out of this scene, how does it change them, stuff like that. It's just like always, tantamount to the way we write Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm. And my last question, it kind of reminded me, or you reminded me when speaking with Joe Luwan, how so many things were cut out. One of my favorite things, and it comes up in a much later interview, but they talked about like Lucille having Johnny remove his shoes.
Yes.
Were there any cut things from this episode? Terry and Kreese, Kenny, Robbie.
Let me think. I mean, I did love the thing that I talked about where everyone jumped over the roof. I did always love I did love the end of that scene. I think like that cut was, I'm very happy we made that cut, because I think it's just so much more about Sam. I'm trying to think if there are any other jokes or lines. No, I think like for the most part, all the stuff that we loved stayed. I do love the end joke of I did miss the Nate just the fact that they're locked on the roofs was such a funny image, but it had to get cut. So I think that would be what my answer would be, which is unfortunately something I already said. But that was I love that joke. I just love the like real, and Billy was so funny. Like the kids were so funny, like pulling the door, and then Billy like realizing he was locked up was so good. So I hope we can like throw that online at some point, because it was so funny.
It's very interesting, because we have spoken with Nate and Gianni, who were both in that scene, and neither of them brought that up.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, we but they all that was a tough day, because it was like we actually shot 2 days up there, one day all for the dialogue, and like those kids were tied to ropes, which were all obviously erased digitally. But like that was a tough day. Like it was cold, it was windy, like there was a train passing all the time, so we had to like cut around that. And it was also like there was a rainstorm a couple days earlier, so we had to be careful and make sure there was no water. Like it was just a very tough scene. And then the second day we just did all the stunts. Like we literally had our stunt team, Selkie, who is the stunt woman who's the double for Sam. She like literally jumped. Made those jumps. Like she was incredible. And like we had Sam landing on the other side. We had to there was a bridge that that wasn't built for it. It was already there, like that connected the roofs. So we'd have to walk to the other side and then tie them up. Like it was just, we were literally up there for a full day, shooting just jumping stuff, just everybody like absolutely hauling ass to get to the roof and all that stuff. So it was a very like, I remember being on set for that, and it was really tough, but I think in the end it's like a memorable scene, and Mary's incredible, like the feeling of like, oh, she's making this jump and the slow motion, it just all came together so well.
Now, was Selkie's Sam's new double, was Julia Maggio, was she not available or something? Wasn't that who doubled for Sam before?
Yeah, no, it just no, I'm not sure who was available for what, but Selkie came on when we had the new stunt team with Ken and Dawn, and who are amazing. I mean, Ken's been on the show before, like he was the double for Kreese, obviously, but Dawn was new, and he just like came in with so many great ideas and just like a knowledge and really wanting to up the game in a big way. And I think it's like all there on the screen, and they were so safe and so everyone felt so good with them, even though they were new. And so yeah, I really can't. I don't know what happened with Julia, but Selkie's awesome, and she really brings it and is great. Everyone's just so game and just wants the show to just be better every year.
Yeah, I mean, Ken
have,
wasn't just.
I was gonna say you finished what you were saying.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say Ken wasn't just Marty's double, but he was also a character in the flashback in season 3.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
that's right.
Ken's awesome. He's great. We text occasionally. He's a good dude. I love Ken. I
don't know if you saw it, but after I interviewed Mark Canonizato last year, I don't know if I just found it somewhere, but there was like the picture of Mark, Ken, and I'm forgetting who the third person was, but they were all sitting in the Cobra Kai dojo. And
cool.
I took the screenshot from Spaceballs, like, these are not them, you idiots. These are their stunt doubles. So.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, Brianna, go ahead. Your last comment, then we'll finish this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in case we haven't said it, congratulations on being one of the way up there writers on like the number one show in the universe. I talked to Joe and Luan a little bit. Luan didn't even know it had happened on their episode, but you had the same thing happen to you, which is it turns out that the girl that lived in the house across the street from where you were filming Kenny's front door is a fan of Cobra Kai. So she got her phone out, as teenage girls are going to do with Tanner Buchanan's on their front step.
Of course.
When the leaks started circling and you realized that one of your episodes was one of those leaks, was there frustration? Was there anger? Was there like a resignation to it?
I feel like I'm a lot like Joe, where like I don't, or in Luan, I don't like to look at the leaks. I'm just like, that's a bummer. And I think, my feeling is, I mean, I was definitely frustrated. I was definitely bummed. I get it though. Like people are excited and they just want to like, look, what does this mean? And I know everyone's so excited. I digest like content so much differently than a lot of people do in that way, where like I don't like knowing anything going into a movie or into a TV show, because I think so much about the fun of watching this isn't just seeing the things happen. It's like I don't, if I knew something was going to happen, like if I knew that Terry Silver had won, that Cobra Kai won the dojo, and I knew that going into the season, I don't enjoy the like how of it. Like, okay, I know this, now I'm learning how. It's more about, but it's like, it's one thing to like kind of go along for the ride and seeing the things happen as it happens, versus knowing it's going to happen and watching the content to be like, well, how does it happen, or why does it happen? And for me, it's like I want to enjoy the whole thing. I love being surprised. I like hate spoilers so much. I'm very frustrated with the way, like that's part of the reason why I went off Twitter and social media, because so much of the way that site works is about like being the first one to say like, oh my God, this happened on Boba Fett. And I think like, I just like, so, to each their own. And if people like, I would hope, I would prefer that the fans do not share leaks, even if they're really excited about seeing something, because I was actually, like, to Joe's point, I was impressed that more stuff didn't get leaked, considering the amount of huge things and huge reveals that we're doing, and being on location. We have to be on location to shoot. So the fact that not as much, and we've changed the way we have to do production, because like things get leaked. So we're changing names on script. We're not taking pictures of the episode titles anymore, because we're trying to hide as much as possible. Because we want the fans to be surprised, and we don't want anyone to accidentally have that surprise get ruined, because I know what that feels like, to be like, oh God, like that got spoiled. That would have been such a cool reveal. Like, for me, like watching Mandalorian, I didn't know Baby Yoda existed. Like I was so surprised, and I was blown away when that happens. And that's the feeling, like being a writer, that's what I want you guys to feel. That's what I want the fans to feel, to be like, oh my God, they did that. so that when you have that surprise, it just hits all the harder. Even watching a trailer, like, oh my God, like, no, like knowing that Chosen was gonna, if you knew at the end of the season that Chosen was gonna show up, it would change the way you feel about the episode versus not knowing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's a long-winded way of saying, like, I'm always a little more bummed than others, I think, about this leaks, and I would prefer that people didn't share them. And I think it just kind of is like just the world that we live in terms of fandom, where like these fan sites, you kind of have to be on top of it and share these things. And it's part of the reason why I stopped following a lot of these sites, because they felt like they had to reveal every little tidbit and be the first one to share it. And I will say, I very much appreciate the way you guys approach that stuff. And I know that some stuff we've had some leaks in the past few seasons, and I very much appreciate that you guys were very much saying, please don't look at them or don't share them, and taking that stance with it. And I always really appreciated that. So yeah, that's where I feel about the leaks.
Oh, sure. I mean, so I think you were still around when like it was revealed, the Eagle Fang geese. And so
yeah,
that was the biggest one for me. I'm like, great, now we know that it doesn't work out at some point.
Yeah.
So you're kind of waiting for it.
And you see it in the trailer now too. Like, at least in the first trailer, you see that people are wearing red geese. Like, if you're really looking, you'll see it. And I think like some of the, but I know that leaked before it, and that was a bummer. But it is still like, okay, well, at least you're not sure when that happens, why that happens. Does it happen early? Does it happen halfway through? And it is what it is, unfortunately, and it's a bummer when that happens. But it's really like, it's so hard. I'm impressed not more got leaked. You know what I mean? Like there were so many huge things we did and on location, and like flying in the guys from the past, and like that, all that stuff. At any moment something could get leaked, and we've been really trying to be even more careful. So I'm thankful that not a ton from season 5 has been leaked. So I know there's been a few, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, I'm just excited for y'all to see that when that comes out eventually. I don't know when.
Right. And also I think it is like kind of a small price to pay for being like one of the best shows in the world.
I mean, yeah, it's like people are just excited. They love the show, and we love our fans. And like, I hope it doesn't come off like I'm mad at the fans, because I'm honestly not. It all comes from a place of love and excitement and being like, oh my God, look at this. Like, this is what's coming. And I know that the way that it works, you get the new season, you binge it, you devour it, you watch it again and again and again, and then you have to wait another year for more. So it's like, I'm not surprised that people would be like champing at the bit for every little detail and information and hint. And I know, I get it. I'm like that with other shows too. So I'm lucky that I know what's coming, and I get to enjoy it and be on that side of it. And it's like, listen, I love being a part of Cobra Kai. Like you mentioned, being one of the high level writers. Like I mentioned this on my first interview, Cobra Kai was my first staffing gig, and I wouldn't be in the career and position I'm in, even with Twisted Metal, if it wasn't for Cobra Kai and being a part of that, and learning so much from John, Josh, and Hayden about how to be a producer and a showrunner, and how much work that goes into writing a TV show and creating a TV show. It's just insurmountable, the amount of work that goes into it. So it's just the absolute best being a part of the show, and the fact that you guys love the show so much, and everyone loves the show so much is like the best reward. I mean, that's like why we do it, is the things we get excited about. We're like, we know the fans are going to lose their goddamn minds when this happens, and then then we see you lose your goddamn minds, and we feel vindicated, and we enjoy that we got that reaction. So it's all great,
we reciprocate the love and your passion for what you do. It warms my heart, man. It's always a joy to speak with you.
Of course.
Again, like I know that our listeners, they love all the interviews, especially with the writers. But I know that people love pointing out your energy, and always enjoy hearing your insights.
That's so nice. I'm happy to hear that. And listen, it's just I love the show. I love you guys and the fans, and doors always open. And hey, maybe in the future, maybe you'll do a Twisted Metal podcast.
Look, I have ideas for it's gonna happen. When the show ends, we have ideas. So this podcast is Cobra Kai Kompanion. Any extension of Cobra Kai, this is your coverage.
I love it. Well, the door. Listen, you guys have my handles. Please, anytime. I love coming on and chatting, and I'm it's always fun to talk to you too.
The door is
Fantastic.
always open unless Hayden slams it in our face, right?
Hayden's not going to slam
Proverbial
any
door,
anyone's face,
yes.
trust me. He
So,
loves this. He loves this too.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Michael. You mentioned the
Thank you.
handles. If you welcome the interactions, you know,
Yeah,
you want
you
to
know,
throw
if
those out.
I'm on Twitter at Beardy McWhisker. I'm on Instagram at I am Michael Jonathan. I'm honestly not on them very much, so feel free to follow. And occasionally, I mostly am posting either announcement stuff of what I'm working on, or sharing occasional retweeting more stuff about the show. So I don't talk about my personal life very much anymore, but or try to make jokes. So it's mostly just like, if you want to see what I'm working on, I'll probably share it there.
Yeah.
But hopefully I'll have more cool stuff to share in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's always a blast.
Yeah, maybe some behind the scene photos from this episode we just talked about soon.
Well, let me see if I can scope some. If I haven't shared them yet, I'll go through them and I'll put them up.
Brihana, where can people find you or follow you if they don't already?
I am Brihana25, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, archive our own, fanfiction.net, MySpace. I think I mentioned MySpace last night. I don't know. Everywhere.
You did. You
Everywhere.
did say MySpace last night. That thing is just like a social media thing for like musicians now or something. I don't know.
Totally.
For me, I'm on Twitter at Cobra Kai Pod, on Instagram, Cobra Kai Companion spelled with a K. Please check out our website if you guys haven't already, CobraKaiCompanion.com, for links to most of our interviews, at least 95% of the interviews. I have to update that. But as always, thank you guys for continued support. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like so that way we can, share more of these interviews with other Cobra Kai fans that love this stuff like you guys. So we will catch you guys next time on the next episode.
Bye.